In the first two parts of this series, we learned about the early years of Darth Plagueis, his rise to power as the Dark Lord of the Sith, his earliest meetings with the man who would eventually become his apprentice, Sheev Palpatine, and the calculated moves that Plagueis made to set up the destruction of both the Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic. The links to those videos are in the video description if you'd like to catch up, but right now we're going to look at how Darth Plagueis, in an attempt to bow the Force itself to his will, inadvertently caused the Force to create the being who would one day be the downfall of the Sith Order itself, Anakin Skywalker. Plagueis had made far more progress in advancing the grand plan of the Sith than any other Sith Lord in centuries, but doing so led to him making some enemies along the way. An assassination attempt left Darth Plagueis gravely injured, and though he survived, he was forced to rely on a breathing device to survive afterward. He was paranoid of another attempt on his life, and remained in seclusion for the better part of the next 20 years as a result. Darth Plagueis left the political maneuverings to Palpatine after that, and instead retreated to his laboratory where he spent most of the rest of his life experimenting with the manipulation of midichlorians. Plagueis rejected the idea of the Force as a mystical power, and instead sought to break it down into a quantifiable scientific form that could be harnessed and used to his advantage. His main goal was learning how to use the Force to control life and death, and his favorite test subject by far was Darth Venomous, the secret apprentice of his master, Darth Tenebris, who he had killed years earlier and whose body had been stored in his laboratory ever since their initial confrontation. Plagueis repeatedly brought Venomous back to life, killed him again, and then revived him again in an endless, tortuous cycle that the Sith Pretender was only able to escape once his body gave out to the point it could no longer be revived, even by Darth Plagueis. Another of Plagueis' projects involved finding a way to bend the Force itself to his will, so he could both increase the power of the dark side, as well as limit the ability of the Jedi to either detect or act against him by casting darkness over the Force itself. To that end, Plagueis and Palpatine engaged in an extended and extremely grueling meditation session that lasted for several days as the Sith attempted to will the Force to their side. They eventually succeeded, making the dark side so pervasively powerful that it actually cast a shroud over the Force as a whole. This shroud, which Yoda alluded to in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, not only masked the activities of the Sith from that point on, but also diminished the Force abilities of the Jedi to the point that they couldn't even detect a powerful dark side user like Palpatine when he was standing right in front of them. Plagueis' work ended up having an unintended side effect, the creation of the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker. The news that the Jedi had discovered a child who had literally been conceived by the Force came as a shock to Plagueis, but the timetable matched up. Anakin would have been conceived at the same time he had cast the Shroud of the Dark Side over the Force after his meditation with Darth Sidious. Plagueis was terrified that Anakin had been created by the Force as a retaliation for the way he had hijacked it a decade earlier. Fearing that the Force had produced the Chosen One long spoken of in the Jedi prophecies to destroy him and put the Force back into balance, Plagueis finally emerged from his laboratory after nearly 20 years and traveled to Coruscant to see the boy for himself. Plagueis caught a glimpse of Anakin as he departed Coruscant with the Jedi and Queen Amidala for their return to Naboo to free the planet from the clutches of the Trade Federation, as chronicled in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. When Plagueis reached out to the boy through the Force, however, Plagueis was immediately barraged by a series of confusing visions, including one of a cyborg with a black helmet and armor rising from a table. Worried that he had unwittingly started a chain of events that would lead to the eventual destruction of the Sith, Plagueis resolved that Anakin Skywalker must not be allowed to train as a Jedi, and tasked Palpatine with preventing that at all costs. One thing was for sure. Whether it happened at the hands of the Jedi, the Chosen One Anakin Skywalker, or, in accordance with Sith tradition, his own apprentice Darth Sidious, it was apparent that the end of Darth Plagueis' life was near. We'll learn more about his final days in the fourth and final part of this series, but for now, thank you for watching, and as always, please leave your thoughts in the comments section below, as well as anything you'd like to see covered in a future video here on the Star Wars Wavelength YouTube channel. You can also really help us out by clicking the subscribe button and checking back when future videos are posted. Thanks again for watching, have a great day, and may the Force be with you, always.